Spice Sisters. We're so glad you're joining us again today. And to start off, we want to remind you to hit that subscribe button.
And we want to thank those that have.
Yes.
And ask them if they have a friend that loves to read. Ask them to watch us maybe and subscribe also. We'd surely appreciate it.
To start off today, we're going to review 2 books that we both have read fairly recently. And the first one is I Found You
By Lisa Jewell. And this is my 3rd one of hers. So Gail, this was your first one.
My very first one. And let me start off with just a couple of positives. The story was very intriguing. There was mystery, adventure, romance. But what really bothered me, just personally, is the language. And it wasn't just a little bit. It was pretty much throughout the book. There was some language that I just find offensive. And a couple of situations that were given in detail, some sexual things that just for me was a little bit of a turn off. So I would not recommend this book.
Okay. I loved the book. I would give it, and let's try to remember to give stars,
Okay.
because that helps, even though to me reading is subjective. It's very hard.
Yes,
I would give it a 3-star, not as high as some of the others I've read of hers, but that's mainly because we have 3 different segments going on.
Yes.
And we have 2 timelines. So you're going into the past, and then you're coming into the future, and you have a family that's taking a vacation at the beach, and then you have a lady that finds a man on the beach in front of her cottage, and he doesn't know who he is, has no memory whatsoever, and she lets him come in and stay in her shed temporarily, and she uses that oftentimes to rent out to people. And then we have a couple that just got married. The girl is very young, in her 20s, and the husband is much older. And he doesn't return home from work one night. And
she's from a different country, right? So she's a little scared being in America and not really
she's
knowing.
not in America. She's in England.
Oh, I forgot.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Yes,
this
all
is
right.
set in England. You're right.
That's right. I love British novels.
I do too.
For some
I really
reason.
do.
And so she starts to really get worried, and she goes to the police, and they come out and do some investigating. They get his passport, and they tell her that no such person exists.
So there is a lot of mystery, there's a lot of intrigue, and the storyline I liked. So
yeah, I am not as offended by foul language, I guess you could say, as my sister is. And we're all different.
Yes.
And to me, in fact, I didn't think it had hardly any. But we're different. We
Yes.
are sisters, but we're different. Sugar and spice. But the thing that really at first kind of bothered me a little bit was it took a long time to connect any of these fragmented parts. So each time you started reading one, it was kind of like re-evaluating where you're at and who you're with and that type of thing.
Some authors are really gifted in being able to do that in a smoother way. And hers, was, like you said, was a little fragmented.
Yeah, and she has...
One other thing that I was going to say...
Well, just interrupt.
I'll just interrupt. It won't be a spoiler, but I'm just going to say that I didn't care for some of the ending situation. I wasn't so sure that it was as believable in some of it, so I'm just throwing that out.
Right,
I won't say anything else.
Okay, so I say, get it. I Found You. I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, Gail, the next one we are going to talk about that we've both read.
Yes, it is entitled Educated by Tara Westover.
Nonfiction. And I'm just going to say my little bit about this one because it's been a long time since I've read it. Gosh, over a year maybe. And I enjoyed it. It was you couldn't put it down. It was so interesting. And the whole storyline is just almost unbelievable. It really is. It's
Actually, I'm going to interrupt you right there because one of my points is I started right away. I read it on Libby, my library app on my iPad. So I didn't have the book cover to see the little, way that they bring you into the story or give you a little bit of the backstory. So I'm almost halfway in and I'm going, this can't be true. Surely it's not true. So I had to Google it, found out it is absolutely a true story.
And I will just say that the thing to me was, because it's in fairly recent times. I'm going to say it was like maybe 1980s. I don't know. It hasn't
late 1990s and early 2000s.
And I'm like, how could these people not really know? But hey, I do believe the author. I think it's a true story. And who am I to judge their family? But
I'm still processing it because it is so steeped in abuse. That's just the word. Mental abuse, some physical abuse, emotional abuse, and yet at the same time, it's a family. It's a big family, and they, there's some love there and there's some connection there because mom and dad are to some extent taking care of the children, but
they don't go to school. If I remember,
they do not go. The father is very domineering and very controlling, and he does not allow them to go to school. He does not allow them to go to a doctor or a hospital. He's very much afraid and against anything that's governmentally affiliated, and he has almost a paranoia about that.
He wants to be self-sufficient and not rely on the government, doesn't trust anything to do with the government.
Right. And is trying to really get them ready for the end times and, stockpiling of food and propane and...
But there's so many injuries in it.
Yes.
But like Gail says, Gail, tell the great part. Well, okay. I guess, can we tell the great part?
Well,
yeah, it's good.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Let me go back just a little bit because the mom, because of illness or injuries, she starts using herbs and oils, essential oils, and she has learned things from her mother or grandmother, and so that's the only doctoring per se that they do. So that's very, very intriguing to read about that. But the youngest child, Tara, the one who wrote, this is really her autobiography, she obviously is gifted with intelligence. God has given her a gift of intelligence, and an older brother who got away from the family and went to an aunt and got his GED and took the ACT and went to Brigham Young, encouraged her to try to do that. So you'll have to read the book to find out, does she really do that? Does she get out? Does she get an education? Of course, the title is Educated, so it gives you a little hint, but it is so inspiring. It is very moving.
It's
you
sad.
Feel it is sad,
sad.
In many points, and you feel what she's going through so much. To be honest, I was talking with my husband this morning, and I don't usually feel this urge to email an author, or sometimes I do and then I don't follow through. But like I say, I'm still processing this. This young lady, I believe, is still searching out her faith, and I would love to email her as the Lord gives me prompting and try to encourage her.
Well, and if I'm remembering this from a long time ago, I think she's gifted in singing, and she actually sings.
Yes.
And Gail, she has been on talk shows. You'll have to Google her.
I'll have to look
that up. Okay. Thank you so much. We're going to go on now to our other books. We are back, and we decided to kind of readjust ourselves.
We're more comfortable where we are right here. I hope that's all right.
We're not showing our thighs.
Oh, love that part.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. We talked a lot about those books because we both had read them. So we're going to try to be a little bit shorter in our reviews now. But I have to tell you, this book, A Place for Us, and I'm going to look at the author's name while I say it, by Fatima Farheen Mirza. I looked it up to see how to pronounce it. Oh, I give it 5 stars. And you know that means it's the top of the top. It is a fiction book. It's about a family from India, and they moved to America. Mom and dad, 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. And it starts out with Amir, who has basically left the family, and he's coming home for his sister's wedding. Now, I have to tell you, this book touched me on such a deep level. This author writes characters that they are real. These people are real. You relate to them. You love them. You are disappointed in them. And this family, it's just so unique how the different people in the family relate and how she brings out the different emotions and relationships. And I just was in love with the whole family, and I was so brokenhearted that at some of the things that happened. But what it spoke to me the most about is we can love people that we don't like. We can love people that do not agree with us on some of the most important things in our life. And it taught me even more so that grace is more important than someone living like we think they should live. You know, you shouldn't do this, you should do this. I cannot say enough about this book. Please, if you have not read it, pick it up, read it. It is going to touch you at the deepest level of your heart and spirit.
Okay, and I'm going to review a book that I read several months ago.
By Lisa Jewell.
No, The Book of Lost Friends by Lisa Wingate.
Oh, gosh.
And that's okay. I'm hoping that you're not going to get tired of me giving reviews of Lisa Wingate's books, because I can tell you, you will never get tired of reading them. So this is another historical fiction. Remember, I reviewed Before We Were Yours last time. This is The Book of Lost Friends, and it is based on truth that happened during the 1875s, during Reconstruction, after the freedom of the slaves. And she takes 3 characters during that particular time. Haney, who is a freed slave, and then there is the next character is Lavinia. I have my little notes right here. Sometimes I can't remember names. Lavinia. She is a pampered heir to a now desolate plantation. And then the third character is Juno Jane. She is Lavinia's Creole half-sister. And they are going on a journey during this time, trying to find their father, for one thing, Lavinia and Juno Jane's father. They're trying to get away from a lot of what was going on during Reconstruction, because it was a very treacherous time.
I didn't realize this at first, but I read this book, and I remembered it. I loved it. And Juno Jane's is actually the illegitimate child
Well, yes, she's her half sister,
Right.
and she's a Creole.
Right.
The father would go
Had
to
a mistress in,
New
I want to
Orleans.
say,
New Orleans,
Louisiana. Yeah.
So that's sort of the backstory of those three characters. And then Lisa Wingate is really good at the segmenting, like you said. Then it goes into another story in 1987. And the second story is about a first-year teacher. She goes by Benny, short for Benedette. And she has gotten a job in a very small town in Louisiana. It's a rural town. And as a lot of small towns are, they don't really accept new people right away. But she falls in love with the children she's trying to teach, and she really wants to help them. And she begins to discover centuries-old secrets that are in that town. And I almost forgot one of the most important parts of this book is the truth behind it, which is actual newspaper ads. They were originally put into a very well circulated Methodist paper, and those ads were the slaves that had been so broken up, the families, sold off and lost, siblings and moms and dads, and they were wanting, now that they were free, to try to maybe get together. So they would put an ad in this Methodist paper. The preachers were supposed to read it on Sunday mornings from the pulpit. Then they were posted in different post offices, and then of course the people that had subscriptions to the different, particularly this paper, would be reading it, and that would be upwards into the thousands. And they did ask that if you did find some of your family because of reading these ads, would you let the newspaper know so that they could post that and be encouraging to the others. So there's the truth. In the book are some photocopies of these actual ads.
Fascinating.
And then one other point on this book, and I definitely give it for sure 4 or 5 stars for sure. I love Lisa Wingate. She is just gifted. She gives a 2-page narrative at the end of the book, and I thought it was so thoughtful because of our times. She wanted to be truthful to the type of dialect, to the phrases that the characters would have spoken, and without being derogatory in any way. She did not want to, and she does it in a beautiful way. She also said that history really speaks to us, and the history of the struggle of Haney and of Lavinia and of Juno Jane, and what they did and how they overcame so much. It speaks to us in our deepest level, and I just know you will enjoy this book. The Book of Lost Friends. You remember reading it?
So many adventures that they go through.
You won't. It's a page turner. You won't be able to put it down.
That's for sure. Okay, my next one is a nonfiction. I don't normally read a lot of nonfiction, but I'm kind of in that vein right now. Between Two Kingdoms, and this is by Suleika Jaouad. This is about a young girl who, in her 20s, just getting out of college, actually going to Paris, a dream life. She's wanting to be working in the field of journalism or publishing, something like that. And she finds out that she has cancer. And it is a very aggressive cancer. And she goes through 4 years of treatment. She has so many different types of treatment. The chemotherapy, she finally gets to the point where she can have a bone marrow transplant. Her brother is a perfect match, and so she has that. But then she still has to go through almost 2 more years of treatment because the cancer that she had was so extremely serious. And she was very sick, not just from the cancer, but because of her immune system. Well, she fell in love at the beginning of her illness, and this gentleman stayed with her throughout almost all of it and was there, quit working, just took care of her, was very giving. But things happened and that relationship didn't work out. So when she really gets to the point where she is quote unquote healed, she starts to try to go back into her life. And she finds out that it's very difficult. And I want to read just a portion of the book because it explains so well what she was having to go through. Recovery isn't a gentle self-care spree that restores you to a pre-illness state. Though the word may suggest otherwise, recovery is not about salvaging the old at all. It's about accepting that you must forsake a familiar self forever in favor of one that is being newly born. It is an act of brute, terrifying discovery. And I think oftentimes we do not think about a person that has gone through a very long illness and then they are told, you are cancer free, you can start your life. You think, well, they're going to go back, to themselves. You don't go back, she says, because you're not that person anymore. So she struggled with this, and she finally went on a journey, and she decided she would go visit the people, some of them that connected with her while she was having treatment. And she actually traveled all around the country. And it is a beautiful, inspiring book. And I have to be honest with you, I thought when I got to the part where she was well, I thought, well, there's so much left of the book. What could be left? But you see, there's all that beginning of actually a new life, a new way that she has to see her life because she continues to have problems. And I looked her up today, and I'm not going to tell you what's going on now, but I highly recommend. I'm going to give it a 4-star, Between Two Kingdoms. Pick it up and read it. You will learn about yourself, about life. Thank you.
That is so interesting because my next book, and it is by Nicholas Sparks. So many of you know how popular he is, and many of his books have been made into movies. This one is entitled The Wish. And it is about a young lady who, at age 16, had to go to Ocracoke, North Carolina to live with her aunt. And you'll have to read the book to find out why she had to do that. Ocracoke, North Carolina is a place that I have been to. My husband and I camped at the Outer Banks. It's part of the outer. You have to get on a ferry to go to Ocracoke. It's a little small community, and so that immediately intrigued me that I had been there. I literally could picture the lighthouse and some of the buildings. So that happened in 1996. She was 16 years old. And then we jumped to 2019. She has become an accomplished photographer. She has her own gallery in New York. And she is able to travel all over the world, photographing iconic and very different places. But she finds out that she has cancer. And it is an aggressive type.
But this is the fiction.
Now this is fiction.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I did not say that right up front. But as you were saying that, I'm like, well, the one I'm fixing to do has a little bit of that kind of story. And what is she going to do with her life now? She does decide to do the treatment. And she really cannot do her traveling. So she has time to ponder her life before when she was a teenager and some of the decisions she made back then. And then what is going on right now with some friends that she's made and with some family that maybe the relationships are a little bit broken. So this book, again, it will just touch you because it's so real. The characters are so believable and so real, and the situations are something that you can relate to. And if you're familiar at all with Nicholas Sparks, it will be
You'll cry.
heartwarming,
Do
and you
cry?
will cry, and then you will laugh, and there is a wonderful ending. So please get The Wish by Nicholas Sparks one more time. I will just.
Did you
show
rate
it
that
to you.
one, Gail?
I think I said 4
Did you?
stars on this one.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, my last one for today, we actually had more, but we realized that we are just really going long, so we're going to save them for next time. Oh my goodness. Empire of Pain, The Secret History of the Sackler Dynasty by Patrick Radden Keefe. He has another novel out, Say Nothing, about the uprisings in Ireland. Nonfiction again. Whoa, this book is about a family. The parents immigrated over here. 3 brothers born here in America. They all become doctors. The oldest brother starts working in a health facility in New York. It would be a place where you would put people that had mental issues. This is back in the early 1920s, 1930. And the main treatment then was shock therapy, shock treatment. And he wanted to try to help and find something more. He said, there's got to be something that we can do to help these people. So in the meantime, his brothers have grown up. They're all doctors. And he gets them to help him, and they work and they do experiments on rabbits, and they find a way to formulate some medication that can help people. Well, what goes on to become one of the wealthiest families in America, billionaires, is because the brother is able to integrate medicine, marketing, pharmacies, and he does it in such a way that they become wealthy. Their names start to go up on museums, on colleges, at Harvard, at Oxford, in England. And in the 1980s, they develop Oxycontin. Mm-hmm. And they market it in such a way that today they are going through legal battles because of certain things that they did.
What started out as really a good thing ended up possibly because of
greed, yes. Gail, of greed.
I agree.
Our mother used to say, it's in the word, the love of money is the root of all evil. And I believe it's true. And I tell you, this book is so scientific and legal, but it is, to me, they started out, yes, trying to help. But as time went on, they just decided that they had to have more money, and their name had to be so important. But what is so sad is when the brother's father passed, he told him, he said, I don't have much to give you financially, but I have the most important thing to give you, and that is a good name. A good name. And now that name has become one that is very difficult for them to bear. And some of them have even attempted, in this one man has the same last name as them, and he had to change it because he was having so many problems with it.
There's a proverb that said, a good name is rather to have than riches. That's one of the proverbs.
That's great. So what I want to just read, I keep reading from the books, but it's so good. The opioid crisis is, among other things, a parable about the awesome capability of private industry to subvert public institutions. Just as the FDA was compromised and Congress was neutralized. There are so many, the CDC was hindered, and it's because they were so wealthy, they were able to circumvent these different areas It's a fascinating book. I feel empathy, some for the family, but mainly you do feel like, because they do not ever apologize, they never accept any responsibility for the opioid crisis that we are still in. Great book. It is lengthy. It's detailed. You're going to take a while to read it, but if you like that type of book, I love any kind of legal, science, historical book. Pick it up. It's fascinating.
And on the absolute opposite end of that, if you want to just read a sweet, heartwarming story, it's The Christmas Table by Donna VanLiere. And you might be familiar with, she wrote The Red Shoes, that was made into a TV movie. So she writes a lot of Christmas stories, actually, and just sweet stories. This came up on my Libby app, Carla, when I was looking for another author's book. And sometimes they will do that for you.
Yes,
They will bring up a similar author. So this came up, and I was just ready for something easygoing. And, you know, it's July. I'm looking at that. I'm going, Gail, you don't want to read a Christmas story. But I went ahead and downloaded. It is not just about Christmas. It does have a few chapters that have to do with the Christmas time. It's a story that starts off in one era and then jumps a little bit to another one, similar to all I think that I've
Almost
reviewed
a requirement
today.
now.
I love, but you can tell I love that style.
I think most
of writing.
people do.
I really do. But so one family, young family that are struggling, and the husband is trying to learn how to make things out of wood, and he wants to make this special table for his wife for Christmas. And here again, she is going through cancer. I don't know why we've hit on that today, but you know, there may be some of you out there that are suffering in that way, or you have you're now in remission and you've got a story to tell. So this one is a good one. And the other family is a young couple. Later on, they get married, and the same thing, struggling a little bit with money and their jobs and being able to afford things. So they go to consignment stores and flea markets. So anyway, I won't give away anymore. You will read this very quickly, and it's just a sweet story, a heartwarming story, and The Christmas Table. Don't be afraid to pick it up. July or August, it'll be good.
Well, we thank y'all for tuning in with us today. Our next video, we are going to review some books that we've read in the past, and they're just so good. We want to share them with you. Thanks again for watching. Also, please subscribe, and see you in a few days.